좀 대위대 루틴 개발전 될이야. 아니 이제 탈바다 탐지 캠핑이 내 겨워치만 하나 미고 와토야다 탈바다 탐지 캠핑고 와토비게 남냠는 이름바디 네 직대가 닝볼레야기 닝볼렘비 수요시대 냠 남술렌 주기신 이름바디 마 어도스네 숭이센 디고랑 수고래 디네장은 가사 아가슈바레라네 다던달라 아제 네 가소레 루딘 상보식 토요레스 딘델이야 아니 루딘 디델이야 아는 저기 남주에서야데 마시 리바디다 비슈 침보슈 직당토야지 개발차되어래 제산 딘상보디 토비 딘델이야 저기 안지게 개발치마 라람미고와 토야다 달바다 탐지kim고 토야기 탑람 디 아니 두고레스 냠수 랭고레스 제상아 디주바이나 니 디기 조군이 디기세디 두고레스 지단 디두고레스 니네자 아니 데두야려야 안당보 삼당나지 근데 당고레스네 지다 아주 치워세디 기 용해바스기 텐데 요 말에 되면서다 당아 마시바지 수부티부 탕보 고합 유리갑리야 아니 냠 개어주야다 안디부봉하데 네 지게 샘쇼 가소레다 배주신의 지인선배 삼다제 도신제오레서 가서 다들도 주변에 가서 디고르드네 쉬로다서.
Good morning. So yesterday we commenced our retreat, and the purpose of this retreat is to utilize this incredible life that we have in the best way possible, which is to accumulate causes that will lead to desired results, in particular a good rebirth in our future lives, as well as progressing towards the attainment of liberation from the sufferings of samsara and the attainment of enlightenment itself. So to actually achieve this, then yesterday we spoke a bit about this precious human rebirth that we have all achieved, which is marked by its incredible intelligence. And that on the basis of this intelligence that we all have achieved, through gathering knowledge and reflecting and later meditating on this knowledge, we can accumulate the causes that are required so as to attain temporary happinesses, in particular good rebirth, as well as to progressing towards attaining the lasting happiness of liberation and enlightenment. So this is an incredible opportunity that we all have achieved, but this opportunity is impermanent. It will come to an end. It is certain that we will all die. What is uncertain is we have no idea when. Whether tomorrow or today will be the last time in this body, we have no idea. And reflecting on this well serves to give us impetus, encouragement to utilize whatever it is that remains of this life, to utilize it well, to cultivate virtuous minds.
네. 난 저게 디기두야다 둥아세디 낭 삼로 요아다제 아니 삼로 저게 펜비게 삼로 디릭티 아니 개위리 삼로데 뭐 공부했다. 되네 아줄이야 둥아야기 삼로디 안마 매바서 고레스 매방고레스 지단 디바봉 개와 줍세 개와사세디 지단 개와사세디 내가 저기 기위초 삼로디기 봐 지게 춘춘이야 되스 지지지지데 내가 저기 잘라사발은 당보는 먹고요 말아 당보 지지 니제된 말마 차차주로 안디나신 개왕아주 당보네 이 첨부 책임 말이지사 당보 개와 춘춘서 아디네 마사 두신 지지지지된 먹고 차로 싸로 그래서 안디네 개와 덮치면 차고 그래서 다디 개와 싸고 그래서 내 개와 싸세야 개와 싸야지 안주기 지난 조다 류기 개와 나기 개와 안에 이기 개와서 수명고래 이나 조다 류랑 나기 니디 개와 차다 마차도 조 일을하래 거래 진짜 이기 개와 진짜 이기 개와도 조 차대요 진짜 이기 개와 차와 예바나 내내 나다 류가 개와 용야 이 말에 진짜 이기 개와 세디당 간에스 라기래라나 이기 개와 세야 돼 가지고 셀레 펜베 셈바 제외 삼바 tarpa sayada top gudu sanbe samba, sanjo kubang top gudu sanbe samlo. Ane chik sosuki lu longje 탐제 샬라파 땅제 샬야 로바 지긴 셈베 삼로 다 류가 있으면 거네 샬야 네버 지금에 셈베 삼로 디수 차상 개와 차되로 디네기 두스지나 삼로 디게 개와 곰세지 디네게 삼로 야네 땅에도 삼로 디야 뉴버 처치로 오래 해서 딩아 좀 냠는 지역에 디시 오래 해서 너 디봉 기룹세 디순 거로 봐.
So how one actually comes to attaining states of happiness, both temporary and lasting, as well as through eliminating all problems and difficulties. The way one achieves this is through transforming one's mind. And the transformation of one's mind is the meaning of the accumulation of virtue, in that as one's mind, to make one's mind more virtuous, one accumulates virtue. To make one's mind less non-virtuous, one eradicates non-virtue. So the first point to make here is we can relate to this perhaps by the old-fashioned scale, by as we put more weight on the side of virtue, the side of non-virtue has less power or strength. Or if you think of, if you're shopping, and as you fill up your shopping bags, you have more and more and more and more, this is like accumulating far more virtue. And the way one accumulates one's virtue is through the three doors of one's body, one's speech, and one's mind. So through one's physical behavior, verbal communication, and way of thinking. But of these three, by far the one that really counts is the mind, because our physical behavior follows in mental intention. What we say, how we say it, follows mental intention. So by transforming the mind, we will transform our physical behavior and our way of speaking. Hence, this needs to be our focus. And through developing our mind, for example, cultivating the determination not to harm others, which is the training in ethical restraint, both our speech and our physical behavior will reflect this intention. Similarly, by cultivating the determination to only help others wherever we can, and as we develop this wish, it will be expressed in many ways, such as generosity, giving of ourselves, our time and our energy and our abundance to help ease the suffering of others. So the cultivation of virtue means strengthening wholesome, virtuous ways of thinking. And the abandonment or purification or elimination of non-virtue means turning away from non-virtuous, unwholesome ways of thinking.
네네 자당한 저기 디바세디 지나 개와디기도 신의 삼사여도 야 삼당여도 디바디 라슈기 주고 저거 봐 베네스 소실리아 젠레 잠제 삼당여도 젠레 니베 삼노도 영화 거요 말와 지나데 잠제 삼노디 바 슈체 셰셰도도 니베 삼바디게 아니 영야리아 삼노 거야리아 베 타rin 주고 봐 근데 제만에 안에 제가 잠제 삼노 베 쥐마 많이 버지 귤에 계속하면 진이 젠레 니베 삼노서 자오기는 거야메 봐 차서 책으로 디나지다 곰세도 잠제 곰세도 되니게 잠제 봐 야네 야도 섬다 야네 야도 섬두체 섬당이다진 간섬질이야 아니 섬노데 야세 코리아 아니 그디나 제마질이야 쥐마마베 차도 되니 섬당 먹어지 그런 라슈기 딜레도가 차야도 책으로 봐 디네 차야도 갑라 디네 젠레 니베 삼바세디 거기네 섬노지 기네 코리아 메바서 차로 그러 봐 진짜 디네자 디네 개와 두바리 디바 뽕을 세디 진짜 디바디 메바 차로 그러지 되니게 다지가 저기 삼로 따나 삼로도 있잖아 진짜다 삼로데 니베 삼바면지 나고네 샬란데바 지금말 류고네 샬란데바 지금말에 진짜 류가네 네바 메르와 진짜 간줄네 네바 제디 야네 류고네 네바 저르샤네 야네 나고네 네바 저르샤 야네 셈기두스 삼모데 디마도 네야 제 메르와 진짜 디네자 군롱 코로 삼로 코로 네바제 삼로데 바카샤네 류가게 네바야 메레 딘 디바사야 메 류가고 디바사야 메레 제가 디네자 당저기 삼로 주와 당고레 세디다 낭비 취기 랍지조데 삼리토네 아니 개와두고레 시데 디네 디바봉도 그레스 제가 디네게다 삼로데 야고 디네냐냐 차베네 디네 시소베네 개와치마데 다디 미스딜레 야가지요 레이 다 쳐버려 책으로 와 야가시리고 그래 디네 마오바데 디네 미스딜레야 야 삼로디 다도 곰베 왕기 냠직 디네게 가지고 기회 삼로디 균투지래네 되네 지게 제til에 로직 가서 로 제되려야 장교의 체면에 돼서 야르치 되는 마시도 깨와치마도 딜에 야르치 되는 로직이 가서 되는 깨와치기 숨지 되는 두신 야야 친제 아니 지 자주sem바 차야 되는 사요고 본토야디 되는 시용도 보러 당도
To return then to the analogy of or the illustration of a scale, where on the one side we have wholesome ways of thinking, and the other side unwholesome ways of thinking. So let's say that you recognize within yourself you have a habituation to getting angry or annoyed or frustrated in your interactions sometimes with others. So you see on the unwholesome way of thinking that when people act in a certain way or speak in a certain way, your response often is one of frustration or annoyance or anger. So this is then on the unwholesome side. Then, if we take the wholesome side and we cultivate that, in particular, the kinds of ways of thinking, the kinds of minds that are opposite to anger and harmful intent, these are minds such as love and compassion. So if you apply energy to cultivating love and compassion within you so that they grow in strength, so that love and compassion grows in strength within you, then as the love and compassion on that side of the scale grows in strength, the anger starts to weaken. And initially this will mainly be experienced in meditation, where one recalls particular events that you got frustrated at, and you replay them in your mind, re-role play them, generating love and compassion as a more skillful response to the same event. As one does this in meditation and develops one's habituation to love and compassion, then you'll start to experience the effects of that in your daily life. When you start to meet challenging circumstances that previously would have triggered you, people acting in a certain way, speaking in a certain way, now because your habituation to love and compassion is growing, you'll respond lovingly, compassionately. So, for example, when someone speaks in an aggressive manner, whereas before one may have responded with aggression, or at least it arose within one, now love for the suffering person will arise within you. And this is a clear sign of one's love and compassion becoming ever more part of one's character, ever more a dominant part of one's character, in that when faced with opportunities where previously one would have responded in an unskillful way, now in an uncontrived or a natural manner, love and compassion spontaneously arise. And then the result of this is that no matter what situation one is in, one is accumulating virtue. Because in situations previously where non-virtue would have been accumulated, here now instead one is accumulating virtue. And the only way that we can accumulate non-virtue is through our behavior, our speech, both of which are motivated by the third, our mind. But as we transform our mind, instead of non-virtue sometimes being expressed, now ever more virtue is expressed. So therefore, by transforming your mind, by cultivating ever stronger habituation to wholesome ways of thinking, the time will come when no matter what one is confronted with, one will only respond skillfully with wisdom as well as with love and compassion. So this process of training your mind, this is the meaning of Buddhist practice. So when someone says, I am practicing, what they should mean is I am training my mind. And it's through this process of training one's mind in virtue that one becomes ever more habituated to virtue and thereby accumulates ever more virtuous karmic imprints, which will lead to good rebirths in our future lives. And moreover, will lead to us taking a pleasure in our spiritual development because we're seeing and experiencing the effect. So through those imprints, in our future lives, when we again attain a good rebirth, we'll seek out the teachings and we'll find them and want to engage with them. So in this way, we will aid our ongoing spiritual development. And this way, life after life, we'll progress towards the eventual attainment of bodhicitta, becoming a bodhisattva, and our rapid progression to the attainment of Buddhahood itself.
오다 코로나샤 코기로 코로규티게디어 디기 직sup치거다 코로세디 랑사요철이야 밀라라와 메바디니기 류하게 넘주디니 튕겨와래 지사 코로기卷제다 미코로라 닝제 산베게 고 닝지게다 안 직sup다卷제세베나 람사바 코로마라바체 팔라의 닝지게 투디 지사 셈 맞추고제 파코로마라바체 세보금도 거래 지사 디니기 냠는 제베나 아주 세베 냠는데 약올리 두고 봐 지사 이가서네 코로나나 나류하게 넘주되는 주부 중기베데 이인바래 저선다 고랑화요 말하다 코로나샤 닝제 삼지시리 단 아주 파원의 닝제 삼다도 파로 코로나지 랑교 말어 저선 아주 셈데 쇠 두고 봐 쇠 마도바는 파래 파 갑자기 하시는 쇠 마도 버려다 저선 쇠 두바스도 분이 라요도 파직 소소 많이 봐지 뒤에는 쇠 봐시고 와 지사 분이 코로나 직수다 균주지에도 소소 누구 말 가서 닝제다 코로나자 코로나나 직수다 되는게 넘주다만 등에 가요 말아서 닝제에서 삼계도 소소를 누구 말 반이게 소리다 지도다 소소가 쇠바 검도 거와
This process starts by coming to know oneself very well, which comes through hearing teachings, reflecting on their meaning, and meditating on them in relation to oneself. And one then comes to recognize that anger only creates suffering in the moment, as well as creating causes for suffering in future lives. And then as one comes to know oneself well, look deep within one's mind, one understands the process of how anger arises, how usually in dependence on either something external or something internal, a frustration arises at things not going how we want, and from that comes anger. So our mind now is colored, and we may then respond through aggressive behavior or facial expression or speech. So we see this process. Perhaps someone looks at us in a certain way or says a certain thing. This is unwanted. And then from this wish of not wanting this, wanting to repel it, aggression arises, aversion arises. And then perhaps we say something or do something. So we recognize this process happening within ourselves. When we see it vividly within ourselves, we know it's happening for others too in the self-same way. And in the same way that up to now, I have been helpless in the face of my afflictions. They arise, and now I'm angry. I'm unhappy. No one likes being angry, but it's now dominating me. And I'm helpless to do anything about this. In the same way, we recognize when others are angry, that they are helpless too. They are suffering right now, and they are creating the causes for further suffering. Then by training in this a lot more, and getting really skilled at it, one will be able to take control of one's mind and not respond with anger. One will see this process playing out and immediately be able to bring an end to it. And in this way, one is gaining control over one's own mind. And then by recognizing this can be done, when we see others who are like we used to be, getting angry over things of really no importance, and responding with that, suffering now and creating the causes for further suffering and being helpless in the situation, when if they had been trained well, they could actually gain control over the situation. But recognizing their helplessness, compassion will arise within us. And instead of ourselves now getting frustrated, compassion will arise for this person who's helpless and under the control of their anger. This is the practice of patience, because patience means not staying quiet, not staying still, but the mind being undisturbed in the face of adversity. That is the meaning of patience. For one to practice patience, one needs a prior cultivation of love, compassion, and wisdom. These are what power the practice of patience. So that, as in this circumstance, there's someone being aggressive towards you. Normally, as in society, the normal way in society, one would get upset and perhaps respond, defending oneself. Here, the practice of patience means your mind stays calm. Because of your own wisdom, you understand what's going on in their mind and what's going on in your mind. Moreover, love and compassion arise within you towards the other person. And thereby, one is practicing patience and can respond skillfully with wisdom. Lassa. So we come to the sixth verse. This life's body, resources, and loved ones will all be left behind, but virtuous and non-virtuous karma will follow like a shadow. From non-virtuous karma, long-lasting and intensely powerful sufferings of the three lower realms arise, and higher realms arise by means of virtuous karma.
다는 먼저 케르야 여러분에서는 어다 소소 주부 류톱 첨보다 누바 간의 쇼베네 시유가로 주부디 케르야 말해서 되네 수부디 샤샤도 그래서 군나데스 자 샤한도 그래서 안데 롱주다 변조 가져나 지가 가야 케야 말 샤한도 그래서 다 소소가 년유도 자세 소소야지 가원이 뭐 가져 연에 디수치 수주 로봇 치야요 말해 차상 샤하신 군나데스 차상 샤는 소소 지부 줘야 돼서 제사당 안주 밀마선에 빼지 규천부 변조천부 왕당 천부 요부까지 코르시 우에딘 예보지나다 다면이 밑가면 조 잘잘라메 사야노야메 대 로보에 수제메디 니니디 시르디 갑라 니가 찍바래 소수 찍부 줘야 해 저래 제상 안주 길이 갑래 미케라 천부이나다 조 수이네 길이 갑라 소수 찍부 깨요래 시류가를 소식 부조야래. 제산 기류가를 변조에 캐는 영화 로봇이네 레어마와 기류가라. 네 코를 욕부티네 영화 말 로봇에 소소 아미 조건만 소소 지구 개형으로 와. 다 시류가를 디나신진에 가제 가르 연하면나 차상 샤신 소소 지구 조거래서 군난 자신 세도. 다 군난 자신 지구 조거래서 마도 신 가야 케투야다 티르님 케요 말해서 그러다.
This links or follows on from what we were looking at yesterday, which is the certainty that we will all die. This life will end. When this will happen, how it will happen, this remains completely unknown to us. And when the time of our death comes, nothing can prevent our death. No matter how much power and influence we have in this life, this will not prevent our death. The powerful people die. Similarly, the love and the care of those surrounding us on our deathbed, even though they desperately want us to remain, they cannot prevent our death. We will leave this life. Moreover, no matter how wealthy we may be, what fabulous possessions we may have, they cannot help us when our time of death comes. And then furthermore, all of that will be left behind. When we leave this life, whether we leave as royalty or we leave as a prisoner or a beggar, we leave in the same way. We leave our body, our loved ones, our possessions, our power, reputation, prestige, it's all left behind. No matter whoever we are. And we move on in the same way. In brief, just like we were all born alone and with empty bank accounts, this is how we all will die.
단 데네 차상 샤샤 지구 조세도 당한도 가르고 세는 아주게 넘버 쉐바 셈디 쉐바도 두고 넘버 쉐바도 두고 와다 넘버 쉐바도 두고 그래 지자다 넘버 쉐바데 다댕한도 주부 들려야 내대요래 그 가서래 전강나 되어봐도 지바래 다데는 그 전강나 주바 전강나도 그 조래도 전강나 샤샤 그런 지부 조야로 어디 나신다 안 시도 된가도 넘버 쉐바도 조셔 거래 주부디 샤샤 주고 와다 지자 데네 인자다 가르님도 케어여서네 소수기 마신이래야 소수기 개와까지 두비변하지 블리주고네 개와도야 나요고네 주 이주고네 삼다 다 소수 검자 개와까지 두여네 개와되님도 케어여래서 다 소수 마신이래야 아니 지금 마시가래야 지류기 디바사 나기 디바 이주고네 디바사바네 디바되님도 케어여서 다다 시류갑라 나도 넘버 쉐바 차상 샤제 넘버 쉐바 조디갑라 네 가르치야 열어서는 아주 메시니엘이야 개와 가서 수업 사베나 개와디 케르고 님도 두고래 디바 가서 사는 디바디 님도 두고래 제상 군난 자신 개단 디빌레 디마신도 치수 장와당스 제상 디마신도 세는 안주게 베네 님도 셋셋도 갈랑 안주 가와줘나 안주 수부이 딘나디 님도 두고로 가와나 예되어와 제상 디나시레서 디마신도 세데 개화단 디빌레데 셈 가와 도바 넘버십바다 가와 도베나 디지 소수게 되베링라 게디 가르사쇼바나 디나시 가와 도는 디념도 다 제수장 주고 제수장 거래서 님도 주고래서 지단 개화단 디발 주고래제 개단 디빌레 디메신도 제수장 와당스
Again, whomever we are, when death comes, we leave this life in the same way. And our consciousness is what will travel to our next life. So yesterday I mentioned the analogy of this body being like a guest house. So when the time of death comes, we check out of this guest house, and as we enter into the body of our new life, that is the guest house we now temporarily abide in. And this is the case for all of us. Our continuum moves from one life to another. And whilst we leave behind our loved ones, our fame, power, reputation, as well as all our possessions, whilst that's left behind, we do not go completely unaccompanied to our next life. Our karmic imprints, they accompany us. They come together with our continuum. So these karmic imprints that we have accumulated throughout lifetimes, through our way of speaking, our way of acting, and particularly our way of thinking, these karmic imprints, they accompany us from this life to our next. And they, in fact, as the text says, follow us like a shadow. So the second line in the 6th verse, but virtuous and non-virtuous karma will follow like a shadow. So it's only our karmic imprints from all that we have done throughout our lives that accompany us at the time of death.
Yasa denegi dan gewa dan diba se de an droba de karis kanis tugore labna chesa nganjugi gewa sa se de nganjugi sambene ben nganjugi ji gewa sa de jamje 공부를 세 gewa sa gi larwa chesa sosugi jamje su gomyo de semde 공부를 와 chesa jamje samno de semde ku tusidi sem kron le jamje nubadi ko gewa de le de yorwa sem kron nub nana gewa de le de yor nubadi 이게 스페네 잠재 삼로 코롱 개화래도 와다. 제가 셈나 셈 코롱기 몰라 개화해 되려 와다. 개화해 돼 버려. 제가 지금 아주 코로 사바네 코로 코로 미거로 와. 제가 코로 코로 셈디 셈이자 디나데 셈나데 유해 버려. 제가 아주 개화 제바나다. 개화치 가르 제베네 아니 데니기 개비 뉴바데 셈들을 샤고래. 셈들 샤고래. 된 디바 가르제나 디바디기 뉴바디 셈이데를 이거 샤고래. 제가다 셈디 조디 디나 뉴바디 여바자 거 뉴바딩 또 스토고르바 지나데 개와다 디버 두고레세야디 디레 나가서 개위게 자와까지 제베네 셈디 때도 개위게 뉴바디 셈들을 용고르바다 근데 베네 아주 미 토야 말다 베네 류제가 제진의 류야 안에지 뉴바 슈크디 차고차 슈크디 류디 리고르바다 베네 아주 류제 자주가 지 슈크디 다 류제 셔라 마자네 류제 차이도 Lugu Nushu di Subugana, Subunale, Didi, Nushu did, Subu did, and Yawacha made wada. The Subunan near the Subu the Gawanos, Subu Nushu the Yava, Subu Mena, Subu Nushu the Merva, the Subu Gawanos, Subu Nushu the Kerokova. And Dinashi, Manzo Kevin, Yamno Com, Japkawa Kazash, the nigger Nuba the same to the shower. Just the same Gawadona gave Nuba to water. Diva Javana semi to the shower, did this year. Just Gawada Divadi, and they semi to the shower, the same to the Gedi Diva the Kiro, just around to go as at the Jumzero is in the.
So how is it that these karmic imprints accompany our continuum from one life to the next? So these imprints are what's created when we engage in physical or verbal or mental behavior. So let's say, take minds such as love or compassion, wholesome minds. These are our minds, a consciousness. And there's this consciousness, it's a difficult word to translate, but it's translated in many ways. The potency or the potential or the energy or even the strength of this individual mind, this individual instance of, say, love or compassion, that potency, that potential is what is the imprint that accompanies the continuum as it progresses from one life to the next. And it's the same for non-virtue. So when one is angry, this anger is a consciousness, and its potency or potential or energy or strength from that instance, that imprint, is what will accompany the continuum from this life to the next. So we can it's maybe easier to understand if we think of when you do exercise. Perhaps you go to the gym and you're building up your muscle strength. So here it's the same word. You're building up your strength or your potency, your potential, energy doesn't work so well in English, but you're building up the strength. And that, after you leave the gym and you've been training for a while, that strength will remain with you. So this is how it works with our non-virtuous minds and our virtuous minds. This potency or potential that we generate, this is what travels with us from lifetime to lifetime.
tunura chadwa doa jiza nganzugi sheba sede diroshi da jian yu da jian ji tedu chu ji duan an ba ji yedo de an ko chigaro de dinaji ma shebi korong ngo dinar ma le de yasa di dire de ji ringbu de da di dire se jewa che ga ya ma ba dinaji nganzugi yu ji te de ne te de gewa san jan le mi ji jamba jia kom de ne kom de ngan zu de ba shi ji de sheba chasan su du ru go ba sheba chasan du de number sheba jing na le du go ba ji dan du de di chasan du chen de ji bu ge jik ti pa ra jo ro ji ma tim ba na ji ma din na ma tim de ga so ji sheba tim de o ji san di sheba de zhuo she de di na de yue de nu ba de yao zhu go ba da To give
another illustration, it's not precisely correct, but it does illustrate the point. If you think of a snail, so a snail's crawling along, and its body is extended beyond the shell, and its two, I think they call feelers, are extended. Then if you take your finger and you come and lightly touch the feelers, immediately they will retract, and possibly the whole, the snail's body too will contract within the shell. And then when there's the view that danger has passed, the snail's body will come out with the feelers standing up again. So this is similar. We can draw this analogy to how the mind will work with its potencies or potentials or energies on it. That when meeting particular conditions, there's a response, natural response like this. That if there is a strong tendency in a particular way, that natural response will come about very easily. If there's a weaker tendency, the response won't be as certain or as powerful. So in a similar way, this is how the mind works to how if we watch a snail.
That deeper draw na so dibe lele gyunjin shu rabe nga so sumyu donga jungwa damas chesada deeper draw de dibe le nuba ti topki anso nga so ba ki ru ko res nga so ki de nga so ge dunga ane ji da nga so le dunga cheshu mangbo de ne ge nyonggo ya da de ne ge gyunbu nyonggo ya de ne ge ane ji ge Bendigo na so ba nga so sumyu dunga da nyawa da ida da ndunjola sebe da ri dunja tamara nyonggo ya da nyawa da de ne ge keba ina nyome de ne dunga de ge da shuk chenbo da gyundu nyonggo ya de da digba de nyomdo sa shebe digba de kero de zembi de do shan nuba de go ra and de la de ne dunga jing yong nga so sumyu dunga nyonggo ya da de ne shu zhabo da gyunringbo nyonggo ya da de ne yonggo re sa ji.
The verse continues, from non-virtuous karma, long-lasting and intensely powerful sufferings of the three lower realms arise. So if, at the time of death, a powerful non-virtuous karmic imprint is what ripens and propels us into our next rebirth, there we will have to abide in one of the lower realms as either a hell being, a spirit, or an animal for an extensive period of time. And the sufferings there that are experienced are intensely powerful.
Da gewa de sia da gewe ilela. Gewe lele de ro yune ni nyudu gewe ko ban to bi chu. Xie bara gila ni ne shin do som de dar sam ne gyapsu zhuwa bes.
Then continuing, and high realms arise by means of non-virtuous karma. The method for rapidly attaining the state of Buddhahood must come to be known and reflected on daily. Having contemplated in this way, go for refuge earnestly.
Da deji dibe le digi debu kare yongro sene ngaso sumna yegres. Chesada dian diba shuk chewa na di debu andunga draba da gyunjingwa yonggo ya chagres di shesara. Da ne gewele le kare yongro la de gewele dedo gyuneni esere. Chesada dedo gewele sabana gewele de san sem namshi tendo sha namshi de ma de gewele de dobo. Chesan gewele le de ne kare yongro sen di debu de la dendro le ki re so dendro la da yang da le go ba to ya yang mi go ba to dendro gewe le dendro gyu ne se de dendro le ge dendro di de la ya ane ge so de ge shu tu ya yong go re ge wa sa ya yong go re de ne ge wa sa ya de an gyu ne an nyur du se de an de le ge wa sa de le ya ma an ji tar ba da pe ne de ne jam ni je gom jam ni ji gom ya da jang shu sem gyu le ge de ne pa ju ru nyam ne che ba la so ba de ne yong go re de ne yong wa le de ne ye yo ko ba to go re ye yo ko ba to bi su che de ne san yo ko ba to go re sa ji na ge wi le la den ti yong go re sa chi.
In the same way, when the time of death comes, a karmic imprint will ripen. If it's a non-virtuous imprint that ripens, one will be born in the suffering lower realms, where one will have to abide for a long period of time and suffer intently. However, if one has accumulated a powerful virtue, then when one dies, a virtuous imprint is what will ripen. And then rebirth in the higher realms as a human or God will follow. So rebirth, as we see in the final line of the 6th verse, rebirth as a human or God in the higher realms follows from non-virtuous karma. And when one, and now moving to the 7th verse, when one is born in the high realms, as we all are, one then has the capacity and the opportunity to continue our spiritual development, to come to understand ourselves ever better, and understand what is virtuous and how to cultivate it, and apply ourselves with vigor. And in this way, we can rapidly spiritually develop, cultivating virtuous minds such as bodhicitta, and progressing towards the attainment of Buddhahood itself.
Dinegi, Givi Lela Dine, the Yonkore, she's not in a Guineas, the Danganzuki, Sedelia, and the Jig Lam Yamlenje, Janjo Sim Gulake, and the Sanjio Toba Yonkores, Kisi Sedelia, Gehotu Sedelia, and the Jig Janjo Sim Yamlenje, Sanjo Kobato, Majumbaina, and the Gewachima, Lada Militeleke, and Din Delia, and Jig Dadanga, Gewasashi, D, Nubi, Topi. Gewachima den sambo top den dela ina ya chöchegi donye tumba da den kokop junje nyamne je da jamni jinya kokop re janju simbi ngo yu geto yungres 지는 유인해서요. 안 될래 되네. 아니 파신 쪽이 냠면에 한 산유고 뭐 도도 용거래서 제자다 셋 아주기 개위 냠는 되니게 잠니제 전주sem로 파신 냠면에 세대래야 우주 중토바나 세대라 산예 투에 여바제. 그지 세대라 산제마 투베네 개와 침말이야 하다미고 봐도 야 된대래야 안 산유고 봐 톱주야. 야 될라마토나 야 디게 개와 침마 개와 이숨 되니게 유이제네. 다 유인해. If
we look at the last line in the 6th and the first line in the 7th verse together, it's making two essential points. Firstly, that to ensure good rebirth, like we've attained now, in our future life, it's essential we cultivate powerful virtue. And secondly, that on the basis of having attained such a good rebirth, whilst we are striving to accumulate powerful virtue, that is also the process of striving to attain enlightenment. So in this life, to the extent we generate the determination to become enlightened or to attain liberation from suffering, we will be accumulating causes for that goal. And those causes will also serve to ensure we have good rebirths in our future lives, so that if we do not attain enlightenment in this life, we can be sure of a good rebirth in our next life and can continue our spiritual development, developing the essential minds such as bodhicitta, then engaging in the various practices of bodhisattvas, such as the 6 perfections, rapidly progressing towards the attainment of enlightenment. But to bring this about, both a good rebirth and our spiritual development, it comes down to the same thing, striving continuously to cultivate virtue.
Denige tobi su shebargila, denige tobi su shebargi, shehoya karasor, diva sabaina, dibigi della tene, manzo shidu kabla, and diva dingam to gore, chesna diva digetne, mansole gire, mansole kebaina, jinyawada ida, dundrotine, dunga yonga chagore, denigi kanga yores, chesna da gewa tubaina. Gewa della tene, sedele in the Yangazuke, Janjusem Yamne, Passion to Yamne Sanuko, top to Yungore. Sedela tomato baina, that Sedelia giving Yamle, Hochubaina, and Gawa Chima tendelia, Tenzambo tendelia, Yamlejo Regores, the nation Sanuko top 2 gores, and big Denigi needs to the Hako Chores, then I shepherd gila, Denigi, Junrimti, Gundigida, Nando Doya, Gundi, Guda, Guche, and Jebung Andro Chada. Dendry and you and the chicken, Yamna gave it to be at a delatin table, the Sanjoko Tobiade. Do needs to do in the Hago watch or as Tobi, the nigger Tobi to shepherd gila, how watch it. Then how when it was in nation or some said that then immediately so gang to do Gawa to Yadi, Besuch account to the Chehore as order.
Reading the first 2 lines of the 7th verse together, the method for rapidly attaining the state of Buddhahood must come to be known and reflected on daily. So what is this method that needs to come to be known? We can say in general, they can divide it into 2 general categories. The first is we need to understand what is non-virtuous. So we need to understand what this term means and what it applies to. So it will be thoughts such as anger, attachments, and so forth, and any resulting physical and verbal behavior. And merely knowing that is insufficient. We need to understand its results. As we saw in the previous verse, it will result in rebirth in the lower realms with long-lasting suffering and intense suffering. And then thirdly, we need to understand what are the antidotes to previously accumulated non-virtue. So this on one side needs to be known. What is non-virtue, what are its results, and what are its antidotes? On the other side, on the virtuous side, we need to understand what is virtuous, what is meant by virtue, and what are illustrations. So these would be wholesome minds, love, compassion, wisdom, and so forth, as well as any resulting physical and verbal behavior. And then what are its results? So that's a good rebirth as a human or God. It's a progression towards attainment of liberation and enlightenment. And then thirdly, how to cultivate, how to develop these wholesome minds. So these are the two sides, non-virtuous and virtuous, that we need to understand in terms of what they are, what their results are, and how to cultivate either their antidotes or those virtuous minds themselves. And then the line ends with, and this must be reflected on daily. In other words, on a daily basis, one needs to engage in meditation, cultivating these virtuous minds, and because the expression is daily, so it's not just referring to a meditation session, but try to have these virtuous minds remaining present and dominant throughout our day.
Kiwi Java to Nedini Yunguri Sebeti, Hakoa Chine, Dene, Yinishino Samda, and Samdana, than with Jamrushi Warriors, Chetada, Dunga Tadale, Jubi, Nubadi, Lamduji Hinki, Suyres, Dumba Sanjiki Chigris, Cheta Sanjiki, Dumbi, Nubayo, Sanjiki, Dungri Sembigi. And Dene and Delia, Sanji, Sun Shaping, Lamdi, Manzu Yamlin Chevane, Zukula. Kokutenda Lamdin said Gula Kiadu, Tenanga Dunga Papang to Warriors. Deniki tele ro chedi, and again Dungo Joe, Papi Kazanam Jangazulia, Lupton ro chigri, Sebetini, that Denigi, Digi to be a tablam di, Jamio Conjo Sumlia, Jobi, Nuba Yore, Denikuguri, Sebegi, Ishe, then Ishe Che, and Anjuke, that Jamdrugi, Labja Carigors and that, Dembigi Carligors, there's a Nanzuya, and it's a Tabachimi Chesidu, Yamna Japan, Dambo, and Chige Jam Nijip in Marche, Tin So, Comia Tatini, and Jamba Comia, and in Jawa Nichimbo Comia, then the Hasanam now Gomgore, then a Simja Tamjasan Yokoban to our show, Sibiki, Janju Sem Gomgores, the Simja Tamjasan Yokoban to our show, Simbe Samno, Di Kunwa Chebe Tone. Then the Jimbe Yamlin, Sudanian, Sube Yamlin, and Zundri Yamlin, someday Shera Yamlin Chegores, DJ Balatin, and Sanjukoma Togures, Disungora, Dinner, Tangan Tambo, Conjusuma, Japsu, Jogures and Big Ishe, Dinema, and the Sanji Labja, Mansun Yamlin Jimba Tinshabadi, Susuki, then Jamba Comia Deocom, then Ninjocom. Busine, Lasam de Yocom, then the Janju Sam Comiada, Sosukan to do dinner, Ninia, Sosukitine, Dujeta, Sosuki, Dusela Papi, Tinigi, Luskan to the Congores, and Comiad in the Congores or that.
Coming to know well the method for rapidly attaining the state of Buddhahood, then, as the third line, one must contemplate in this way, going for refuge earnestly. Oh, sorry, I forgot. The first thing Geshe said was he commented on, you can see the exclamation mark. So Lama Tsongkhapa in several places has used imperatives in the Tibetan. So you'll see that reflected throughout our text. So these are points that Lama Tsongkhapa himself was emphasizing for us that are of great importance. Furthermore, having come to know and understand the method for rapidly attaining the state of Buddhahood, then one needs to go for refuge earnestly. So the meaning of going for refuge, or another way to translate it is turning for protection, is to think it's imperative that I accumulate virtue so that I can spiritually develop and attain lasting happiness, and at the very least ensure I don't fall into the lower realms. Who has the capacity to guide me, to train me, so that I can attain such an exalted state of enlightenment? And that person will be Buddha Shakyamuni, so the Buddha jewel amongst the three refuge jewels. Because the Buddha himself attained the perfect state of enlightenment, and thereby, based on his own experience, presented the unmistaken path. then that's the first jewel, the Buddha jewel. The third is the Sangha jewel. So these are the Arya Bodhisattvas, our companions, those who accompany us on our path, those who are actually engaging in teaching us and guiding us and being our role models on the path. That's the third jewel, the Sangha jewel. Then the second, the Dharma jewel. This refers to the results of training in the teachings of the Buddha as guided by our teachers, those results on our continuum, the true cessations and true paths. That is the Dharma jewel. And it's the generation of the true cessations and the true paths in our own continuum, which is what protects us from suffering. So this term refuge also means protection. So when we go for refuge, we're going for protection. And what we are committing to doing is training in the way that is being taught so as to generate the actual protection which will exist in our own mind, true paths and true cessations. So having gone for refuge, then one engages in the training associated with refuge. So in the context of the Mahayana, that means generating bodhicitta, reflecting on, firstly, our close and entwined karmic relationship with each and every being. We all have a mother in this life, but we would have also had a mother in our life previous and our life previous to that. And in this way, we have this close connection with each and every single being. In some life, they were our mother who cared for us when we were vulnerable. And thereby reflect on the kindness that our mothers show us, as well as the responsibility we therefore have to repay that kindness. This then leads to the generations of love and compassion, the wish for them to abide in lasting happiness and be completely freed from suffering. Then we generate the altruistic attitude of universal responsibility, where we say that our cultivation of love and compassion cannot be left as a mere wish. I have to fulfill it. I have to help others attain state freed of suffering. And to do that, we come to the final step. I have to become a Buddha, the most skilled of guides. And this is the generation of bodhicitta, the gateway to entering into the paths of the Mahayana. Having generated this determination to become enlightened for the sake of others, bodhicitta, one then engages in the practices of a bodhisattva and the meditations on ethical restraint, generosity, and so forth, the six perfections. So this is the meditation that one needs to engage in on a daily basis and do so earnestly with sincerity.
제 톱세데 주지데 당주기 나한테 대자 산요고와지 샹다지로 요바체 된수 나한테 롭좀 냠는지 얀 말래요 바로 삼단 되는지 인사마로 당주기 다 되네게 다 산제세데 고와 톱세데 나한주기라 베네 나한주기 집에 둘로로 쌍마샤를 작와 고에는 그 둘로데 이지갑 직주 작와 샤바락바 다로 드누도 다면 드누도 차이 숨지도 그 작와 찾아다는 상부상냐 차죠로 변에 레가보시네 될로 최로지 고외네 내 바직 양주 당보이 작바 다로로 되네 아주 되스 고외된 드누이 바투이 근데 그 가슴질에 차상 다네 예마나 까보까게 차중구로 지난 디난시 나도 셈디 나도 셈게 라신디나 상이게 셈게 라신이라 개발지요 말해서 그래 지불해서 그래 당하고 셈데 까부가지 임바질이야 아니디 로보기 팀바세요 콩로다 되자다 나자다 디네 계시네 대수기 변에 도신 뚱디해서 싫어요 지상하고기 잠제 삼다 두 삼다 어디까블 나서려 콩도 사이에 삼로디 파 종법발마서는 마매버서 용거래 매버서 거래 되네 안에 진비 냠네 삼다다시도 나서려 세나세 저러와 세나디 가서 삼로디 진비에 삼로다 숙체로도 마저 셈게 세나디 말 비루 거래. 인디나신 현리아 차와 지금에 삼다에도 그 송요도 현리아 차와 지게 삼로디 마고 비루 거래. 지상 직비니 비두스 마 비로도가라 되네 까본 마선에 가슴지 충충 체체체체로 진행 안주 셈디 아니 지게 상기에 셈나 두시네 왜게 가서 가서 남바 탐지 켐바 세데 가양 다들 안 저기 밀마서는 미리기 두스네 투부지가 변나 토아요 말아 투부디 바가 변지 답답지네 셀라 메셀라 토아요 봐 this dia 파시 파비샤베네 된 세부 통고로 봐 디나시 아주 다들 셈디기 유 차사 통마도 어디 아주 녀모버 로보르기 dim마서 로보르기 dim마 대속이 뜸돼요 그래지 지상 안주 곰도 가다 로보르기 dim마디만 누가 슌슌슌만 종로 마서는 빠고 비두고 다가지 비도데 아니 거기는 난게 삼로디 지 통하기 밀 마서 통하디데 누비 체체로 되는 상마서에도 아니 백커는 통화 자용으로 제가 최 담제 켐바 세도 진 디바탄제 빵바도 디다네 로보르기 dim마서 마상마 매바서 살아 제상한지 되네게 상기에 차로 그래서 제사다 되네게 상이 셈디 되네게 차여도 갑라 되네가 저기 류다 셈 코롱게 류당 근데 구송 상기 구송 투송지 뭐 예매서지 되네게 셈디기 코수부 가랬나봐 매니 두젤에 쳐다 칸나모베 가네스 넘버 되나 돼야 바로지 가네스 주고는 된투하지 수류고는 넘버 돼야 되는 나이고 나 되네 가르 송번에 따다 송여요 바디 셈 코롱 뉴베데는 주투고 왔다디 제가 당한 저기 상기고 토고래 시디 제가 나 저기 디바 뽕고래 개와사고래 랍디 나 저기 삼로데 아슈슈르다데 나 저 로버기 디마디마 니부 춘슈르데 되네 고 장마스고 둘로 장마스여제 되네 그 로버기 디마탄제 파 사본나 바샤다 제바 차자 매버서 사르 아니 셈디 넘버 켐비 이시세 차송래 되네 게 셈데다 오지비 꾸디다 상지 꾸수구세다 되네 게 빵비게 빵바델라다 안지게 미니베 냥데 꼭텐세 차고로 제가 되니기 차도 아주 다 상지고바 토그리 세데 다 지상 공고그리 세데 상지고바 톱 검는 토그리 세데 좀새를 다 톱수도 고 디디디레도 되네지 검네 토그리 세데 아주 상지 검네 검접시 토그리 레거로 와서 검시도 셈디 검비기 디체도 묘모바디 로비 디마드 마슈슈 중으로 와서 검네 토그리 해야지 조당으로지 되네시 도와서 김전로지
The process of spiritual development is something that we each have the responsibility to do. It's not something that can be done for us. Many beings have attained enlightenment, but they cannot give their qualities to us. They cannot remove our non-virtue, our faults from us. We have to do that work ourselves. The analogy here that we can use is if when your clothes get a little dirty, then you wash them and they're clean and as good as new once again. If your clothes are really quite dirty, then you may need to put in a bit more effort. Maybe need to soak them before washing them. And if they're really dirty, then not only soak them, but you'll have to then give them a good scrub before washing them. And eventually they'll become clean again. So this is the process we need to engage in. Unfortunately, we have a roadmap which is complete and unmistaken. And this roadmap was cultivated by Buddha Shakyamuni based on his own lived experience, in that he was once an ordinary person just like us, sitting, hearing teachings, thinking about his own mind, and then cultivating virtue and eradicating non-virtue. And he did it to the point of completion, the point of perfection. And based on that experience, has presented the complete and unmistaken method for us to engage in. So how to then purify our mind and accumulate good qualities? What the process that we need to do is the stains, like the stains in our clothing, the stains on our mind, are the non-virtuous minds such as anger, attachment, pride, and so forth. That is what we need to remove. Someone else can't do it for us. Our mere aspiration to be free, to never be angry again, for example, is insufficient. What we need to do is remove our anger primarily through cultivating virtuous minds, such as the opposing minds, such as love and compassion. Then, as explained earlier, the stronger our love and compassion is, the more difficult it is for our anger to arise. And when our love and compassion really is deep within us, anger just won't arise. Similarly, the self-centered attitude of miserliness, to abandon this, we cultivate the opposite mind, the mind of generosity, the wish to give. And giving is not just done materially, it's giving our time, it's giving our assistance to others. So as we develop an ever more generous, kind-hearted nature, the self-centered attitude of miserliness, where we're putting our own needs first and foremost, this will dissipate. And when we come across opportunities to help others, to the extent we have developed a generous nature, easily, without any resentment, we'll help others. And without any hope for something in return, such as praise or thanks or reputation, we'll help because we want to ease the suffering of others. So that comes about through developing good qualities within ourselves. So this is the process of removing the layers of dirt and stains, the non-virtuous minds, by cultivating wholesome, virtuous minds. And the interesting thing for all beings is that these stains, that we can visualize them as surrounding our continuum, they're adventitious, they're temporary, they can be removed, just like the dirt in clothing, they can be entirely removed. And as these, on our continuum, these layers of stains of the non-virtuous ways of thinking, as they start to thin and dissipate, beneath that, our pure consciousness starts to shine through. Because for a Buddha, all these stains of the afflictions, such as love, such as attachment and anger, have been completely eradicated. So solely the purity of their wholesome minds remain. So as we weaken our afflictions, the purity of our mind starts to shine through. And this we all start to experience as our nature, our personality becomes ever more wholesome, loving, kind, imbued with wisdom. So this is the process that we need to engage in, washing the stains from our mind through accumulating virtue, or these virtuous minds, which is like the soap, which purifies our afflicted minds, the stains. And eventually, the pure state of Buddhahood is achieved, or the perfected state of Buddhahood. So a being who has attained Buddhahood has attained a perfected state, which means all faults have been perfectly eradicated, therefore all good qualities are perfectly developed. Or it can be expressed in the converse, all good qualities are perfectly developed, therefore all faults and stains are perfectly eradicated. This means a Buddha is a completely unrestricted, unlimited being. A Buddha has no restraints. We have many. We don't know, should I do this? Should I do that? Should I maybe say nothing? What is the best course? We have no idea. A Buddha knows perfectly. And moreover, we tend to only be just here, restricted to this one body. A Buddha doesn't have that restriction. We are also limited in how we can communicate. We have limited skills, limited language sets. A Buddha, having removed all faults, has no restrictions at all, and therefore can help perfectly in every situation. So this is our goal, the attainment of the state of perfection. And how does one become perfected? It's through developing good qualities and thereby removing stains. And how does one do that? Through meditation, this process of becoming habituated to wholesome ways of thinking and breaking our habituation to unwholesome ways of thinking. And that process of meditation comes about in dependence on hearing and reflecting on teachings.
Niki nat jugi gom japse ane nyamlenje kewa gom jene sanji topre sedi ndushine gom yodo sosuge samlo nala chisan nganzu timati lobur ki timasi lobur sene ko rangu ngoine rangshin yu dubdio memba che 유단 낀질 테네 고 줍대바지 게대바지 로버기 마서 제가 유단 낀데 파가샤바이나 고 요아메 고 제메 바샤 그래서 근데 아주기 대샤로 스체베네 근데 유질 차바기야스네 고스데 사본나 제바 메바제디 오늘 지금자다 가시 한 내가 유 될래 아니 지게 차고메제도 탑시제야 돼 먼저 탑시제다 라다 림바 몽골리거래 배는 아주기 제 잘라지리아 남유 잘라지리아 배네 지게 사지리 메도듬라 지야 고치에 될이야 지시우 차바에 지게려 차고로 시우지 차고로 주에나 아니 메도들 봐 사지들 마로와제 마통와제 양릉제 마로와제 양릉스데 니고 암초야 많이버 되어 있는 디 메도들 내가 차바기 말 차바기 차바 방그리에서 배는 아주기 네 나도 부모를 기신다 지다 때 부인다 부모질이야 가다 부모들 뭐지다 강아를 쳐도 뭐 차와 내가 방타디 니고 삼로 균에 마다 대라 마체 봐제 대라 마체 봐 디고 기시에 많이 봐 디고 삼로 마다 샤샤바는 디 델이야 차와디 기기 말했어 디나중 콩로서 미델 마가 그디네 콩로서 되는 미디기 삼로 야네야 따면은 콩로도 휴셔셔도 거래 제가 디고 미코랑 삼코랑 마다 미 내가 미디 마통하지 암조 고요고 암조 먹고 미게 마다서지 마통하지 그 내가 장능시도 쉐되면 그 아니 그 콩로데 녀마디 전부 제루고 내가 콩로 랑고만 내가 다 콩로를 내가 탈위 탑람 되네 삼다 용거로와 되네 다고 자원에 매봐서야 되는 잠재고 매다 다음에 봐도 비셔라 곰지 매봐서 그거로와 진짜 사번나 바샤티기 되네 매봐서 진짜 내가 콩로를 미텔레 콘트롤 말아야게 탑람 되네시 차바 말아야 탑람 토바 콘트롤 말아야 탑람 언두시네 가지고 탑람 무슨 거를 제가디 로보 있으리 가서 콘트롤하디 유지고래 유지면에 콘트롤하면에 제가 유지래제 니게 유디기 기엔체 소소 나네네 지 삼로이 토네 마디비게다 추미제세 되니게 삼데 니니 도면도 콘트롤 기엔 거래 제가 기엔 유디파 매바지 유디 마선나 콘트롤 기에요 말에 제가 되니기나 도시네 제가 되니기 유단 긴 되는 초도 콘트롤게야다 되샤게야다 나제게 소스지부 되는 수제면은 나제게스가요 말로 미 망보라 쉐도가라 나연된 친구 콘솔라 나야 그래서 콘솔 된드네 나제기고로 제가 되니기 긴다도 초도 긴거 제가 로보를 해서 로보를 유단 긴래 되네 레데가 마도 고 라신 매바 제가 고 매바 쇠도 무조래서 쇠투고래서 제가 라신요 고 죽되베는 거 매바 쇠투야 말해서 제가 당 하는 주길래 녀모 비 로보기 디마레 디 로보기 디마레 제가 하는 주기 잠재 겁나 이거 전에 체외 삼바데 도투고래 진비냠는 고묘도 안세나 도투고가 도루고래 안디나시 맞아 다음에 봐도 비셔라 직 고묘도 셔랍 고묘도 아니 몽바 마르바디게 도투고래 제가 그 로보를 했어요.
The stains that surround our continuum, these are temporary or adventitious, and the meaning of the purpose of pointing out that they are adventitious is that they are so because they are not in the nature of the mind. And the reason that we can point to for them not being in the nature of our mind is that these afflictions arise in dependence on causes. When certain causes and conditions are met, an affliction will arise. If those causes and conditions are absent, it will not arise. There are two streams we can look at for causes. One is the object, perhaps external, perhaps internal, and the second will be the seed or the imprint of the affliction on our continuum. So if you have an attachment for something, when you meet that thing, you see it or hear about it or think about it, then because you have the affliction, the seed of the affliction, it will arise. Perhaps attachment, perhaps anger. So this is a process of dependency. In dependence on certain causes and conditions, the result, this affliction arises. But because it comes about in dependence on causes, this gives us a method to gain freedom from these afflictions. And that is to eradicate the causes. Ultimately, or finally, we need to eradicate the seeds of the afflictions on our continuum, in which case they could never rise because we lack the seeds for them. But that's a long-term process. To aid us getting there, we need to slow down, limit the rise of the afflictions. So for this, we each, as our own spiritual developments, our own responsibility, we need to look at ourselves, get to know ourselves well, see what triggers us, whether it's in the area of attachment, of anger, of pride, of jealousy, whatever it may be, see what triggers us, and then focus on dealing with that. So let's say, we'll take maybe both attachment and anger. If one is in a particular situation that's not going well, not going the way you'd like it, attachment can arise, anger can arise. So let's say, firstly, you wanting to be in a relationship with someone, and they are not wanting to be in a relationship with you. What's clear is your mind will be unhappy about this. So firstly, attachment will arise. Attachment for this person, hence you want to be with them. Attachment draws you towards them, believing that if you are with this person, happiness will come. On the other hand, though, if the person rejects you, then pain arises. And now this person has caused you pain. So you push them away. And this is the arisal of aversion or anger or annoyance within oneself. You push them away. So you recognize here that this relationship is a bit of a problem. It's not going well, and you're not dealing with it well in that one's mind is becoming disturbed. So here it's best then to not have anything to do with that person, to remove oneself from that situation, because it's seeing them or hearing their voice that triggers one. And then ask your friends, please don't talk about them for now, because that triggers me as well. And that way, one eases the likelihood of one's mind responding in a negative way. But that's the first step. There's a further responsibility that you yourself then must apply. And that is, when your mind is not overwhelmed by attachment or anger for the person, you then need to not think about them. Here you need to discipline your mind, subdue your mind, tame your mind, so that you are not thinking about them. Because if you're in your room ruminating about either your loved lost, or this person who keeps harassing you, keep wanting your attention, but you want nothing to do with them, if you're ruminating about them, you might as well be in their presence or hear about them, because your mind is still disturbed. So there, you need to stop thinking about them. And there are several techniques to try to take control of your mind. But perhaps the general area that is most successful will be to actively take your mind to an opposite way, a contrary way of thinking, so as to develop an antidote. So if it's anger arising in particular, then cultivating love and compassion will help with the anger. Because to the extent that you generate love and compassion, to that extent anger will not arise for the person. Rather, perhaps you'll feel compassion for them. So this is the second step. The first, or maybe the first, is to recognize what's happening within yourself, what's triggering you. The second is to separate from the situation. And the third then is to take care of your mind, to deal with your mind, to not think about the problem. And how not to think about the problem? It's to cultivate a contrary way of thinking. And then as one develops this antidote, this contrary way of thinking, and that one becomes more habituated to that, whatever it is that triggers you will do so less so. And in this way, one is starting to gain control over one's own mind. If one starts to see the afflictions arising, because you have now some skill in developing the antidote, as soon as you notice the arisal of attachment or anger, immediately you turn your mind to love or compassion or wisdom. And in this way, deal with the arisal of the affliction before it dominates. So this is a process that takes some time. But if you apply yourself and reflecting on it daily, undoubtedly transformation will come. And so I've used the one illustration here of relationships, but it applies to everything. If you find you're very attached to beautiful gardens and you find your mind is dominated by beautiful gardens, don't go to somewhere with beautiful gardens. Don't watch the gardening show on television or have your friends talk to you about their beautiful garden. Tell them, this is dominating my mind. I want to do something else with my life. And they will help you. But then at the same time, take care of your mind so that you're not sitting in your home fantasizing about beautiful gardens. And rather, use that opportunity to develop what you want to develop within. And in this way, you'll start to take joy in letting go of gardens. And the reason why all of this is actually possible is because whatever fault you see in your personality, if you find yourself a person who's dominated by pride or anger or jealousy or whatever it may be, that does not define who you are. It is not within you. It is just a way of thinking that you're habituated to. It's nothing more than an unwanted habit. That's all. Which means it can be removed. The best way to remove it is to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness. That will cut it completely. But these other ways, like I've described, will weaken it to the point that it no longer disturbs. So therefore, every fault you see within you does not define you. And it can, with effort and with time, be eradicated.
yarge druyo badi hago wache diva sawa na ngason da dusin drugore dini hago wache ne dine hago wache dine ngane kewade kantu du drugore saje ane nganzu lapche dusna ware chisa da nganzu dusna wa na she da nganzu samdawe na dadi nge kantu du rojik jigyor wada kan jig namjune da du samdawe ne kan nganzu jigbar wada Gabriel Conrad does younger mother, the Mun Council, the Achixian, the Novachia, the Shan, Chisua, the Chawachega, some of the Shara to Sharaki Gomarwa, me Jala Kumaja, the Niki Kumaji, and Sempi, Dines, the Digo Marwa. Then Garsore, Jimmy, doing share water, which is taking some of the Ayungo Marwa, just that Dines that Denigi Migi Lunga used to Migi Deneshi Ungrua, Deneshua, Tetatangazu that Councilne, Kiwi, Jawaroji, out that DJ or Denetin Gom Jawar said, Nisudi, Mambu Shingor, wada. Jezi Shingbadi, Danganju Masona, Deni Shingbadi, Danganju Chugi, Yamlen Jebigi, Drumdre Chagora, the Shingor, what a Shingbadi, Miguel Masona, the Caro Chaton Chagorwa. Denigi Sidu Danganju, Japsum Sada, Dele Japso Jordan, then Jamni Jokom Nachajo Semset, Mandu Gule Kemenaya, Dösu Kandu Komiaki, Gawadi Kandu Chiduta, Geshe Thubten Som Sumba Nashing Kandu to Chigore, and Dimazeda, kissing John de Chikom Samring, Nimetawada, Dushine, Chikivicha, some Tantu Tangorwa, then Zadanju. Dizu chasa da deji sumba na shin kewadi ngazu semdel nubasha gore cheza maomba na de nga juge chiki da kewachi mal hadami koban toya eta an kewachi me tendela an jigi dikyu ya nyamne chue nyamne jeare an tarbada tamje kimbe koban toya gi gyudige chiki doschene sagorwa diksin yonazo an jigi de damwane an jigi 가서 캐바침배 소종 도 domba슈 냠네 제도 갑라 데네 제찬주 심규군에롱 다 토마네 가도 쉬어야 봐자 데네 개와디 야침바 살고 도시네 소수게 도시네 삼다 어디디 데네 용도 네데 되비릴라 샬야된 삼도 독자 데네 가 코요마 당이 삼로 개와다 데네 삼다 빼야고 중샤 셈베다 디소 소소라랑게 보보기에다 소소소소라랑게 랑려야 안는 나오주제 되가제 소소 가고 미야디 다디 제회데 외바레 디네 제후르서서 게라 지수이라 초동아 세도 랑기 제발야 지수이라지야 That Kyono Kyono Robati Mishanda to get to the Okonzo Bed Yawachu, Yawachu, Konzo Be Yawachu, and Bish, Shalla Chisuiraja, Raya Chisuiraja. Dinichevena, Suzuki, Kawasasha Badia, Nubo Compe to Gures, or Dinezada on Ducine, some diada, Chikan Ducine, Nangore, Dinangore, Yechimori, Essed, down to show it in the Sushin Shasha dinner, you want to blood in Mudi Shushora.
This morning, we started to look at how, from non-virtuous imprints on our mind, created through non-virtuous ways of thinking and perhaps speaking and acting, we create causes that, if they ripen at the time of death, will lead to rebirth in the lower realms. And the opposite to that, the cultivation of virtuous imprints, wholesome ways of thinking and perhaps acting and speaking, these create imprints that, if they ripen at the time of death, will lead to rebirth in the happier realms, in the higher realms. So we all have, of course, achieved a rebirth in the higher realms. And if we think about this, the situation of people in general, they are good. And we can say this for really just about all people, in that the primary cause to be reborn as a human being is the ripening result of ethics. And most people generally don't want to hurt others, don't generally want to cause problem in the world. Certainly, anger arises and act in ways that bring that about. Or attachment arises, and thereby they end up harming others, taking advantage of others, and so forth. Or ignorance arises, and problems are compounded. But that is not the normal state. So there's already a basis. So when you look at yourself, I encourage you to look with clarity, not to be too harsh on yourself, but recognize your good qualities. Because we all here have many good qualities, and these, all we need to do is strengthen these. And those faults that we do have, that's okay. We are ordinary beings, we have faults, those we eradicate. But also, do be aware of your good qualities. So we have this basis that we can now develop. And the developing of this, we start with refuge, where we generate a strength of mind by recognizing how we can actually utilize this wonderful opportunity we have, this rebirth that we have, by striving to cultivate the paths that the Buddha has presented, and we are being guided in by the Sangha jewel, by our teachers, to cultivate the Dharma jewel within, true paths and cessations. That this is within our capacity. All we need to do is start where we are and train in the way that we are guided to do. And if we do so repeatedly over a sustained period, our way of thinking will definitely change. Because this is the lived experience of all those who have done so. So here you've gathered for several days for a retreat. So you're having a lot of input and guidance on what to meditate on and how to meditate. So take this as impetus to add strength and consistency to your own daily meditation. And what's imperative is both daily meditation, but also to take what that you get from meditation and try keep it consistently in your mind throughout the day. Have that guide you. Because this is the process of accumulating virtue. This is the process of accumulating causes that will lead to further good rebirths and will enable our rapid spiritual development, our eventual attainment of liberation and enlightenment. And meditation, based on knowledge, such as teachings, is indispensable for spiritual development. And there are other branches that aid this as well, such as taking the 8 Mahayana precepts and the other practices that you are doing here. And then the last point just to make is that in your meditations, in your time together here, when you're looking at yourself with honesty, be aware not just of the faults that you need to eradicate, but also of your good qualities. And in those good qualities, rejoice. And amongst your good qualities, one is that you're here and you're trying. You are wanting to be a better person. Rejoice in that. You're wanting to have a better, more wholesome impact on your community, on the people around you. Rejoice in that. And as you train your mind, engaging these meditations repeatedly over a sustained period, you will see a change in yourself. You'll see, in particular, in how you respond to difficult situations. Recognize that, rejoice in it, because this serves to spur you on. And when others see it and they praise you, accept that praise, take that encouragement, and continue. And then lastly, wherever you see good qualities in others and they abound, look for them and rejoice in their good qualities. And in this way, especially those that you don't get on with so well, recognize their good qualities, rejoice in them, and start to have a more realistic perspective on everyone, seeing their good qualities, seeing the good in others. So thank you. Then we can finish there for this morning, and we'll continue this afternoon. Thank you.